Good evening, everybody. I hope you're doing well. As always, if we can start this off by you just letting me know if you can see and hear everything is all looking good, sounding good, and everything is in order, that would be fantastic. And then we'll do a couple of welcomes to see who's in the audience tonight. And as always, I'm joined by Imran, who is gracious enough to spend his evenings, or his Friday evening at least, with us guys and girls talking about web design, WordPress, and all those kinds of things. So, Imran, how are you doing this? I can't say fine, we'll just say this spring-ish British evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Having a great time working with clients at the moment. Got lots of projects coming through. I'm lying. Paul knows how I'm feeling. I've been working on a project. We were nearly closed off, and now there's a major problem with elemental forms and nothing going out, and it's not post SMTP. So just leave me all alone, everybody. I don't even want to be. No, I do want to be here. No, I'm feeling good. It's been a good week. Generally, it's been a good week. But yeah, great to be here as always with all of you.
And it's always good to have you here. It makes my job way, way easier because, well, it makes me, I don't have to talk for an hour. I can talk for half an hour, and that's just lovely. So, and obviously, we love having all your wisdom and your words of wisdom and your involvement and your questions and your answers and all those kinds of good things. So, that's the pleasantries out the way with myself and Imran. Let me quickly see who's in the audience, and then we're going to crack on with the topic tonight. And you'll find tonight I'm actually a lot more organized than I usually am. So, this is quite unusual for me. However, I do have a little bit of a technical issue at the moment. I normally have an iPad set up in front of me on a teleprompter so I can actually see and look at the camera when I'm talking to Imran, and it's kind of like a natural conversation. Right now, that's updating and does not want to connect to my Mac. So if you see me going back and forth a lot, that's the reason why. I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just trying to keep track of what the hell's going on. So just bear with me as technical issues do rear their ugly heads, as Imran's found out with his Elementor form today. Okay.
Oh, let's not go there.
We won't. That's the only time we'll talk about it, so nothing more. Nothing more. First of all, Cube WP, thank you so much for your super chat. That's much appreciated. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so who do we have in the audience this evening? We've got Sismit, we've got John, always good to see you in as well. We've got Shahira, I do apologise if I butchered that name, I do apologise, but we'll pop you up on screen to say good evening, good afternoon. Tees, always a pleasure to have you in. Nesma, we've got large-scale ecosystem-based adaptation project. My God, that's got to be the longest username I've ever seen on YouTube. So you win the award for longest name. So good evening to you as well. Vaughan, good to see you. Visual Media Effects. We've got Ahmed in. And we've got Mark Harris causing trouble tonight, as per usual, but always a pleasure to have you around here. We've got Visual Media Effects, always a pleasure to see you. Els, good to see you in as well. Sam, a pleasure to have you here. Sebi Webb, we've got Max, always a pleasure to have you back in again this week. Joanna, a pleasure to see you. Mia, and who else we have? Anyone else? Steve, good to see you in as well. CubeWP, again, thank you for that super chat. We've got the Chillster, which is an awesome name. Fair play. Every week we come onto a live stream, there's at least one person in you that's got an awesome username on YouTube. So you get the award tonight for the best YouTube username so far. Alex, good to see you in as well. And Alex D as well, good to see you. Kalpesh, wow, good to see so many people in. Edward, MD Jadan, good evening, Rich. Hope you're doing okay. Cedric. Okay, let's leave it there. I think we've got all the welcomes out of the way. So tonight we are going to be a little bit more organized. Now, I did a video, a little bit of a live last week, saying that myself and Imran, we're going to, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to sort of talk about a topic that kind of comes up in Imran's live streams, it's come up in the live streams that we've done together, it's come in previous live streams myself as well. And it's about when you are in business, different aspects of it, things like contracts, things like agreements, things like finding clients and all those kinds of things. So I thought it would be interesting to break it down over X number of weeks to kind of take ourselves back to if we were setting up in business right now as web designers, as an agency, a freelancer, whatever it is, what would we do and how we go about doing it? So I have got my PowerPoint groove on. We've got, as you can see, we have really high quality imagery up online now. So this is really only there so I can remember what the hell the question is. But we're going to talk about if you're going to set things up, the first thing you want to do before you even register your business or do anything else, before you build a website or any of that kind of stuff, you need to kind of go ahead and start to do some market research. Now, this sounds kind of boring, and it probably is a little bit boring, but you do need to do it. And the first thing I think we need to talk about is identifying your target market. Now, for me, I can only talk for myself, and I'll pass over to Imran in a moment. The area that I'm located, when I had a sort of web design business, was very much tourism orientated. So it made sense for me to do market research into the types of accommodation-based businesses, tourism-based businesses, and how I could serve them as a web designer. And then I could tailor make what I do to that kind of market. Even if it's only just to start off with, to get clients in through the door that are potentially face-to-face clients that you can have a conversation with. So the first thing I would think you need to do is definitely go ahead, identify your target market. But again, as with all of this, I'm going to pass this over to Imran to get some kind of information off him tonight, how he would go about it and how he did go about it and how he may change that. But as always, you are part of the whole conversation. So if you want to get involved, just do #Q for a question and just get involved. If you were just looking to start a business, if you're doing a side hustle, what are you doing? What kind of position are you in? How far down the road are you as a web designer, as a commercial web designer, charging clients money? Get involved in the conversation in the chat. I'd love to know. But Imran, identifying your target market. I mean, you were based in a completely different part of the country to me, so I'm sure you've probably got very different types of businesses. But I'm also sure that you've probably, at least to start off with, because we have a sort of probably a smaller catchment area until we build a reputation. How did or how would, based upon your experience now over these years, how would you go about finding and identifying the target market to get the best chance of actually starting to get paying clients into your business?
So what you got to kind of do is first decide on, are you going to serve the broader market? So you're just here to design websites. That can work for some people, but it's always a good idea to maybe nicheify and start to think about. So one of the areas that we tackled was consultants and personal trainers, and basically people offering services. Because a lot of these people, they're not always office-based, and sometimes they struggle the most with getting traction if they're not very good with social media as well. So what you do is you start to look at people who are kind of, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook. Believe it or not, consultants have been around a long time, and a lot of them advertise a lot on Twitter, but they're not very good at it. And when you go to their profiles, you start to see that they're just not using social media very well. They don't have websites. And you can basically see that they're lacking in really getting across their message. So what we would do is we would start to look at them and go, well, how can we help them? There's no point saying, yeah, we're going to build websites for consultants. And you could create 100 demos, but they're not going to care because a demo is just a demo. What we did is when we spoke to them or approached them was say, how can I help you? So I would say, look, I've seen what you do. I've noticed you post regularly. I've noticed you like to work in this area, like personal trainers. You do cardio, you do weights, whatever. Have you thought about an appointment booking system? Have you thought about, gaining some revenue here and there? So that's a little bit more of the solution. But in terms of the target market, it's about identifying someone you can help. Now, what we didn't do is start looking for someone whereby we can't really help them. So even with consultants, there's different types. There's going to be a consultant who maybe is involved in stocks and shares. I'm not a stocks and shares person. So what can I really give them? Am I going to give them a website that automatically updates with the FTSE and everything like that, and they can do online trading? Can I do that? No, I don't know how to do that, and I don't want to go down that road. So even when you start to identify your target market, you got to take a step back and go, can you genuinely help them? And if you can, start putting out there what you can do for them. Is that kind of what you were looking for? Have I just gone off on a tangent? I feel like I was starting to talk more about solutions a little bit. I had to pull myself back in a bit then.
Yeah, sort of. I think we just need to make sure that we kind of do our research before we even go ahead.
Yeah,
and
sorry, yeah.
I think that was more sort of the point I was kind of getting at is if you're going to go into business and you want to get paying clients, you need to identify what market you have that you could tap into. And I think like you kind of said there with, you may have markets that expect things that you can't do. I think if you start off, and this is like I say, this is only a suggestion to start off. There's no kind of, this is the only way to do it. It's not. This is just the way that we would look at doing it if we were going back to square one and starting again. I think the overall thing is, if you can niche down to start off with, it means that, especially if you've got a market, like I say, where I was based, it was very, very tourism orientated. So there's going to be bed and breakfast, there's going to be hotels, there's going to be, a spectrum of potential charges you could sort of, or fees, I should say, that you could charge businesses based upon what they would want. And also the kind of requirements would kind of be this kind of broad arch. But if you at least start off with a niche in a market that you've identified as being something that needs, serving, then like you said, you'll identify they need online booking, they'll need reservation systems, they'll need various different things. If you were in a completely different, like for example, you had lots of car dealerships and they didn't want to be on Auto Trader or whatever the US or whatever country you're in, your alternative to that is. These are areas you can say, right, okay, this is a market I'd like to tap into. There's a potential there. Looking at their websites, they're not necessarily great, or they don't have some of these features, to book a test drive and all those kinds of things. So you can identify gaps in that market. So then you can look at ways in which you can serve that market better. And therefore, you can set yourself up as being, over a period of time, the go-to company that specializes in that specific type of business. But to kind of go back to the kind of point that Mark Harris sort of raised, causing trouble already, is what I'm saying. I often hear people about markets and finding a niche. Why limit yourself? I don't think you need to limit yourself. What we're kind of saying is, if you've got a very, very big market in an area that you cover, obviously if you're talking about a little village, for example, or a small town where it's very diverse and they don't have any specific kind of areas that would need serving, then it doesn't make sense. And I'm not saying, and I'm not suggesting you would limit yourself only to that. But ultimately, if you want to become the kind of sought after business or freelancer that is skilled in a specific type of discipline, like I say, I'll use accommodation and tourism as my example. Like I say, I know with Imran, you've done a lot of listing websites because that's something that you've become strong in, because now you have clients coming to you because they've seen the work you've done in that particular type. So therefore, you don't care what business it is. If it's a listing-orientated service they require and a website, then you've been seen as a specialist in that particular niche. I hate the word niche, but you know what I mean, that particular discipline.
I know. Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm coming from with it. So no, I don't think you should limit yourself, but I also think that by being incredibly broad, then you don't separate yourself from the next company that's also very broad. But if you've got, let's go back to the listing side of things that Imran is strong in. If you've got a company and you've got one that does, you look at their portfolio and they've got 20 different sites, all of completely different types of things, and you find one in there that kind of meets what you as a potential client is looking for, and then you look at Imran's website and his portfolio's got 20 totally different businesses, but they're all listing websites that all meet the kind of things you're looking for. Which would you choose, or at least which would be the first one you would contact? I'm guessing it would probably be Imran, because he's specialized in what you do. It's the same as like car dealerships. You've got general garages and you've got specialist garages, and then you've got at the top end of it, you've got the dealers. Do you know what I mean? If you've got a BMW like Imran has, because he's very, very rich, if you've got a BMW, you probably would take that to a BMW specialist, not necessarily a dealership, but a specialist, because you would expect them to have better understanding and knowledge of that particular vehicle or brand of vehicles. And that's kind of what I'm kind of getting at with identifying your target market and then serving your target market. I think it's just has better potential.
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah. And I think, like, if we go back to that analogy, so this is a question that we got asked again on the live chat about, hey, I'm a web designer. I'm really good at websites. How do I get clients? And what I said to them is, take a step back. You've decided to go into business to be a web designer or whatever you're doing. You shouldn't have gone into that if you didn't think there was a market or an audience out there. And like the analogy Paul gave there about like a car dealer, if you decide you're going to go and buy a warehouse and you're going to sell cars, there's no point doing that if everyone in your village rides a bike. The audience is not there. So you need to now think about, do you need to sell to a different area or go global or however you're going to do it? So anyone here who wants, they want to be really successful at web design, but you're struggling to get clients or attract people, you've literally got to take a step back, okay? Look at every shop in your street. There will be a shop that is providing a service, okay? Sorry, let me explain again. There'll be a street with about 10 shops. Which shops are doing well? It'll be the ones that provide something of value to the community. And the shops that end up closing are always the one where they were like, yeah, I'll set up, I'll sell XYZ, but nobody wanted it. Nobody asked for it. Nobody needs to get it because they can get it from elsewhere, or it was so niche, because that's the thing about niche as well. It is so nicheified, it just didn't suit that market over here, for instance. You know, I mean, look, if you set up a shop selling shorts, it ain't going to do well in England, I'll tell you that now, right? Unless you sell other clothing. But if you set up a shop that sells shorts in Spain, you're probably going to get loads of sales. So you got to think about your geography, basically your target audience.
Yeah, this is your market research. This is where you research to see. You know, you wouldn't, like you say, you wouldn't set up a business if I'm going to say you wouldn't set up a business as an ice salesman if you lived in Iceland. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, Mark, the bloody troublemaker. So, if somebody offers you an amazing opportunity, but you're not sure you can do it, say yes, then learn how to do it later. Richard Branson, who is an idiot if he's coming up with things like that. Take my word for it. I've done this. I've done exactly this on more than one occasion where I've said yes to a job, and then I've looked into what would be needed to be able to actually do the job. And then I've given what I consider to be a substandard result because I wasn't confident and competent enough in that discipline to give the result that I'm comfortable in providing. So in this example, I don't agree with that in the slightest.
Can I give you my take on that answer?
Please do.
I also agree with you in that I don't like to say yes to anything where I know I am I've got to be 99% confident I can deliver, otherwise I won't say no. But I feel like if you take that Branson kind of quote, if someone asks you to do something but you only give them half a job, but they are so stupid enough not to know that you gave them half a job, you can get away with it. But these days, a lot of people are clued up on what they're getting and they will question it. So if someone said to me, hey, I want a website, and I just gave them something that looked like it was built in the 1990s, and they're like, oh, wow, I got a website, and they're happy with it, you can get away with it. But I think a lot of it depends on who you're speaking to. And I think you'll notice, you know that there will be people out there who don't know left from right. You can get away with like bog standard, but anyone who wants to compete and they know what they want, you're much better working with people you know you can deliver for, because it's not worth the stress. The minute you know you can't deliver, you are going to have a sleepless night. And that's when you start hating something you should love.
Yeah, I mean, I can give a real world example of that. This is kind of going back to, and this is where I've sort of talked about this in the past, where you've got other web design companies that want to outsource work to you, but they deal directly with the client. And that, for me, is a recipe for disaster, because they might have, they're web designers, but they've outsourced for a reason. You know, you could say they're probably really, really busy, but chances are they've outsourced because they don't necessarily know how to do the job that they've said yes to. So then they're giving yeses to the client, and then they're expecting you to be able to pick that up. And I don't like that situation. It's too stressful.
I don't.
And it very, very quickly and very easy degenerates into a really, really bad scenario. So that's one area that I would definitely not touch. But Els sort of brings up a really good point, that you don't think Branson is a specially skilled person. He has people to do the work. And I think this is the big difference. If you look at someone like Richard Branson, how many failures has that guy had? More failures than successes. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, do you want to take the word of someone that doesn't do it themselves in 90% of the time, and also has failed probably way more times than has succeeded? And in some instances, it's worth taking those risks, because if you've got the money in your pocket and in the bank that you can take that risk, and it's a calculated risk, go for it. I think in the example that we're talking about, I think it's a recipe for disaster in probably 95% of situations. So wouldn't be the way I would go about it, I can tell you that. Okay.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So going on to the sort of the next point, and again, this is all still to do with that market research. This is all still along the same line. It's just the different stages of doing it. It's analysing your competition. You know, again, we could draw analogies here with opening shops and those different kinds of things. But you do need to know what your competition is doing. And can you do something better than them? And again, I think this is where you look for gaps in the service that they offer. So again, if you go there and they've got 20 different websites, all with completely different use cases, scenarios, and businesses, and you can see there's a niche in the market, in your market, that is not being served that well, then there's an opening, potential opening for you there. So analyzing your competition, I think, is an integral and a massive part, of even looking before you set up a business. Because if there isn't a niche there, if there isn't a market, if there isn't a gap there, you're setting yourself up for failure. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
And sometimes there might not be like a clear gap. So it might be that you're building like e-commerce websites, and basically e-commerce websites are very, very similar, whatever solution you use. But it's about what can you bring to the table. And it might not be a technical skill. It might be an interpersonal skill. And something I've spoken about many, many times. Like this week, I've had 4 calls so far, and 3 of them have converted into guaranteed projects now. Why? They all said the same thing to me. They said I was not pushy. I was not trying to get a sale. I was helping them. I was guiding them. I even said, I'm not going to chase you. Here's what the price is. It's not a full-blown proposal, but here's the price, whatever. I'm not going to contact you again. You sleep on it. You get back to me. In fact, I'm going to assume that we're never going to hear from each other again. And they love that. They can see that I'm just going to do what another designer could do, but the other designers are like, oh, you got to use us, you got to do this. So even if you don't identify a gap and you approach someone, especially if you know they're in the market looking for a web designer, so they're probably in touch with 3 or 4 other people, try and understand that the other people might be saying, look, you got to get this, you got to get it now, the price is going to go up and all of this is happening. But if you can show that you're actually on the client side, you want to help them, you care about them, it can make a massive difference. So finding a gap is great, but if there is no gap, use your skills, interpersonal skills as well.
There you go, though. There's that's a different type of gap, I think. That's if you've got pushy companies, you've only got to look at things like how many calls you get from like 118, which in the UK that's a directory.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it's like that pushy attitude will immediately push me away. Again, I'm going to give you an example. In Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales for anybody that's outside the UK that doesn't know, there used to be, like when I was a sort of teenager, I was into I was into rock and metal and stuff like that. So there's a shop in Cardiff that used to have all these T-shirts and things all on the outside of it in this sort of arcade, and you'd walk down there and be like, oh, look at the T-shirts, they're awesome. And then you'd go in there, and it's a really dinky little shop, and you'd go in and you'd have the owner of the shop, and he would literally follow you around going, can I help you, sir?
Yeah.
Can I help you, sir?
Yeah. Oh.
Can I help you, sir? And once you'd done that 20 times, you'd be like, nah, I'm good. And you'd leave and you'd go somewhere else to buy the t-shirts.
Exactly.
I had a smaller selection.
Exactly.
There's the difference. It's like, do you want and I think these days, the pushy salesman alienates people way more than it's successful. The used car dealer, for example, which is always the analogy. I like it when you go to look at vehicles. I mean, we went not long ago from a partner to look for a new car, sort of like last summer. And the guy came out and said, if you need any help, just come and give us a shout. My name is so-and-so. Have a look around. You want the keys to anything? Just give me a shout. I'll be over there. And left us to our own devices, and she bought the car from me. So you kind of get the idea. It's like the pushy sales pitch, I think, is really ineffective these days. But it kind of goes back, like I say, we've got the whole sort of finding your differentiator. We'll come to the unique thing later, but if that is your unique point in your business, that you're not pushy, then that is something that makes you unique in comparison to a lot of other businesses that are out there. And as you found out, that's a strength for you in regards to where you are right now as a business.
And that kind of also relates back to the research if you bring it full circle. So like I said, if you were like going to open a shop where you were selling clothes, and in the area that you're servicing or the target market, there's already 4 other shops, but everyone knows that those 4 shops, they're not great on customer service or refunds or whatever, the service they offer. And you can do something different. It's like fast food. You could have 5 fast food shops. They're all fast food, but all of them they're really, really slow. But you're going to give the same quality food, but faster. Why would people for the same type of food go to whoever's going to take twice as long when for the same value and the same type of food they can get it quicker? They're going to go to the one that's quicker, right? So analyzing the competition, looking what they do, you can start to find your own strengths, and that's what you should be doing, really. Because don't be surprised if when you are speaking to a client, they go, "Oh, but I'm already speaking to 4 other people." Have you done anything in your conversation to leave a memory, an imprint where they're going to remember you? And I'm telling you, you got to try it. When you start to show the client you care, they remember you. And they always say to me, the reason I've chosen you is because you did this, you did that, you said this, you explained it a little bit more. It does work.
It absolutely does. I've had exactly the same sort of scenarios in multiple different times. I can remember there was a company phoned me, go back years ago, but they phoned me up and they sort of talked through what they wanted. They wanted the website redesigned. They were looking to have another website. The usual kind of thing when you have a conversation. And then we were talking, find a little bit more about the business, what they were looking to achieve, those kinds of things. And as part of it, they kind of like dropped into the conversation about something totally unrelated to the website. And I was like, oh, actually, if you do blah, 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 so you added some value in there. The client came back and they worked with me. And they said, we liked the way that you actually handled the phone conversation. And that's why we chose you. So they were looking at other companies, but never underestimate how you can add value. It's not all about making it cheap or giving extra features and turning it around in 2 days instead of 2 weeks. Yes, they can be useful, but most people that come to you are business owners, and they understand that when it comes to business, if you want quality, you like they say, there's quality, there's fast, and there's cheap. You can have 2. You can't have 3. And I think this is really, really true. You can have fast and you can have quality, but you can't have quality and cheap. They don't go together. Do you know what I mean? So you kind of have to have some kind of reality here. And as Alex says, you should look at every job as an opportunity to provide paid value for your clients. Clients care about value more than cost. And let me give you
absolutely
an example of this. This is nothing to do with sort of like the web design side of things, but it is indicative of cost versus return. When people contact me now to do with, like, if they want me to sort of create like white label content for them, like for example, they're a business and they've got a product and they want me to create videos on how their new clients could be onboarded, those kinds of things. When I was kind of cheap right back at the beginning of my YouTube career, you kind of found that probably more people didn't take you up on the offer, because I think there's this perception of if you're cheap, you're probably not very good. Whereas if you are, you can go to the extreme on either side. You could be fiver cheap, you charge $10 to build a three-page website, or you could go 10 grand for the same website. There's extremes that don't work. But I do think there is a perception in people's minds that if you're cheap, on the cheaper end of the spectrum, you're probably not going to give that good a service or end result. Whereas if you are more expensive, people expect more. And I think you can give more. I think this is the thing. It's like if you are literally knocking out sites as quick and as cheap as possible, you are cutting corners because you need to get quality. So you need to get quantity over quality. That means you're probably not doing accessibility. You're not dealing with SEO or optimizing things or any of the things that you should be doing. So if you've got let's say a £500 3-page website or a £5,000 3-page website, which client is going to get the best version of you and the best version of the website? I would like to think for most of us, it would be the higher paying client, because you need less of them to make profit, and therefore you want to keep them happy and keep them sweet, so therefore you will give them a better service, a better end product. It's just human nature. We have to make money to live, and the more cheap ones you do, the more of them you've got to turn over. Therefore, you've got to just knock them out as quick as possible. So when I see companies saying like, oh yeah, we've got 1,000 websites and we've done that in the last year, I'm thinking, bloody hell, you've either got a huge amount of people on your books doing this, or you are literally knocking out template jobs in a day. And there's no quality, it's just literally quantity.
And they usually are. They usually are. And when you look at them, you can literally see that they are the same thing, just with a logo change and a color change and an image change and the content, but it's the same design. And it's not that I have anything against that, but for me, it's like you're just a turnkey solution.
Yep.
You're not you might be doing well now, but eventually, right, you're gonna, you might come unstuck or undone, or you're gonna come up against fiercer competition. Or what do you do when your client says they want something a bit more bespoke? And to cut a long story short, I mentioned it last week, that company that used a really big digital company to build their website. They've now come back to me, and I'm not gonna say anything about who they are, but the wording they've literally put is, we are parting company with this agency that built our website. They're a huge company. What they did was a mess. They didn't understand what we were doing. They promised us loads of things. They were outsourcing to a country, which I won't name, and they were rubbish on communication. They could not understand what they were doing, over promising, under delivering. And that's where you can start to add in your skill sets, and you can show that I can do this. I can do more than what these other turnkeys are doing. So, yeah, I don't know why
Absolutely.
I spoke about that now.
No, but I think it's a very valid point, because you can't realistically be putting sites out. Like I say, you can't put sites out that quick and produce quality, unique end results. And as you highlighted, not everybody wants unique and high quality. So if that's what your target market is, it's a case of quantity over quality, and you can get enough people through the door. And maybe the whole plan is to put the websites out cheap, and the hosting is where you make your money, that residual income from hosting every single month, every single year, whatever it is. And you sort of say, well, if we get 1,000 clients on board this year, we charge them £100, $100 for the website, but then we charge them $100 per year for the hosting. Then that's very, very lucrative. Year 2, year 3, as long as your churn rate isn't crazy high, you can make good residual income. But it is a numbers game. That it's a case of, you have to get so many people through the virtual doors. At what point do you kind of think this is just too much? Then the technical headaches that kind of go with it. I would much rather have 10 grand clients than 10,000, £100 clients, because the ongoing maintenance and updates and all those kinds of things, the technical issues that can kind of arise from huge numbers, that in itself could become a headache. And I would rather go the other route, where have less is more in this example. So that's kind of where I would go with it. But this kind of leads us on, because I think this is a very nice sort of segue into the next one, which is determining your pricing. And again, this goes back to that researching. You have to look at your competition. You have to look at what would the market sustain. And if you're kind of keeping everything relatively local, which for a lot of businesses you have to start off with, that face-to-face, building that client rapport, building your skills, your expertise, your understanding of the market, and all those kinds of things, that's easier when you're doing it in a smaller market. But as you grow, that's a different kind of thing. But to start off with, where you're setting up your business, you do have to look at what are the competition, what will the market sustain. If your competition's charging £1,000, £2,000 for an e-commerce website, chances are you're not going to be able to go in as a new business and charge 10 grand, 20 grand. It just isn't going to happen, especially if you could, because you are more skillful than those people. If the market won't sustain it, then it's pointless, because you're just going to get no work. So, you do need to go ahead and determine your pricing, look at the market, look what it will sustain, look at what the competition are charging for relevant things, and look at, again, how you can differentiate yourself from those. How are you going to make yourself unique? Is it pricing? Is it service? Is it skills? Is it very unique kind of set of skills that you bring to the table? It has to be something. So how did you go about determining your pricing, and how do you kind of revise your pricing? Is this something that you do on a regular basis, or do you kind of have a pricing structure that you kind of think, this is where I am and I'm happy with that now? We seem to be getting enough customers in. We're making enough return on the work that we're doing. We're fine. That balance is being struck right now. I mean, how have you approached this during your career?
Yeah, so we did start off with very low pricing. So, it's true that when you're first trying to get clients, you are attracting the very low market, and you have all sorts of clients. And as you grow with your reputation, reviews, and confidence in yourself, and you get rid of the imposter syndrome, you start to charge a bit more. You win and lose. You get clients, you don't get clients, but you just have to stick to your plan. You got to believe in yourself and not undersell, okay? But what we found is we have like a pricing ladder. So it's a bit like when you go and buy a car, you have your very basic car with nothing on it. Then you have your car that's got your aircon and your alloys, and then you've got your car with your sports edition. So what we kind of do is we're offering a pricing ladder, and we also break that down into itemized. So we might say you might, you might want the basic car. You can't afford the silver, the mid-range, but you can have the basic car and you can have something extra like the aircon. So here's the add-on for that. And we start to determine our pricing. Obviously, a lot of it does depend on your target market, okay? If you're going to build a website for a flower shop, someone who sells flowers on the street, they're not going to have much money, really, okay? And I'm being a bit judgmental here, but they're not going to have a huge budget. Whereas if you're building it for someone that already has a bricks and mortar store, or maybe someone who, they're doing okay, they might have a higher budget. And what you got to think about is don't outprice yourself. You got to look at what are other web designers doing in your area. Okay, I'm not saying match them or undercut them, but what are they doing? So if a lot of people in Leicester, like where I am, they charge like £500 to £1,000, whatever, for a website. That's why our starting point on our website says from 920. So I'm basically saying this is our baseline. We don't go below that, but that's our starting point. And then when we're working with a client, if we get a feeling of the value of the website, okay, so if we know that this company is turning over like £100,000 a year and they want to double their sales and they think the website's going to help them, then I start to look at what is the value of what I'm going to do for them. So we have our pricing ladder, but when I go into the client, if I'm selling to a flower shop for a 5-page, look, I'm just giving you rough figures here, but for a flower shop, it might come in at £2,000, right? 5-page website maybe, okay? However, for a big flower franchise business that wants a flower shop, same kind of website, the charge might go up to £5,000. Now, some people have said, why have you done that? Why have you gone from 2 to 5? And let me explain. When you're working with businesses, they have a budget. And if you go into a business and you say, yeah, we'll build your website for £500, they won't even want to talk to you, some of them. Because believe it or not, they value. It's really weird to get your head around. But a small business, if you said we'll build your website for £500, they'll probably snap your hand up. Yeah, we'll go for that. But there are some businesses out there where they literally put aside £10,000 for a website. And you're going to go, what? For a 5-page website, they're going to pay £10,000. Believe it or not, they do that. And they will be getting tenders and quotes from big businesses. And when you come in seriously undercutting them, they actually won't take you seriously. So we do have our pricing ladder. We have our strategy. But I also kind of look at what is the value to them. And if you're living in the UK or America, it's not that difficult to go and find out about a business. So this company, who are now going to ditch their digital agency, they turned over £3 million net profit in the last year, £2 million the year before. So I'm hoping they come and use me, and then I'll go and buy another BMW. I don't know. But if I go in and I say, yeah, we'll redesign your website for £5,000, will they take me seriously? So I'll let you into a secret. And if they're watching, I'm probably blown my potential now. But they said to me, what's a ballpark figure to redesign? I went ballpark figure 30,000. They were not put off by that. Now, I don't know if that's going to come or go. I'm not sure we're going to do I don't think we'll do a full rebuild. But I'm basing my pricing ladder. So, sorry for the really long answer. We start at 920, then we have a pricing ladder. But if we know you're a company that's got a lot of money and you might have a website budget, we adjust our starting price. It takes a bit of thinking. You might need an Excel sheet, but sometimes don't be afraid to up the prices because, look, J.R. Ewing, for those of you that know who J.R. Ewing is, look, these are people who go to Salt Bay restaurants and pay like $2,000 per meal for a drink and a steak. For them, $5,000, $10,000 for a website is nothing. I know that sounds really like I'm being like over exaggerative here now with my answer, but for some companies, they will pay that. But again, if it's a small company, I don't want to put them out of pocket. I care because if I know the company is a small business or they're a consultant that's starting off, I will think about what can I give them that isn't too expensive, because the longer they stay in business, the higher the chance that they'll work with you, repeat customer, they'll do word of mouth referral. So don't overprice them either. But hey, if they've got the money, don't underprice either. I don't know if you share that strategy at all.
I think you do need to kind of look at the business. I've not really gone down the route of charging more because the company's bigger. What I have kind of done is you look at how much work you envisage being involved, because sometimes you'll have a smaller business and you'll kind of get a feel for the, they know what they want. They know how, they're just coming to you to actually realize it. And you know that the work that's going to be involved isn't going to be that excessive. But then you look at maybe a bigger company, especially if there's multiple people involved, the design by committee kind of problem that you will come across.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you can see that, then you do have to kind of figure the physical, tangible work is not the only indicative factor when it comes to pricing things up. You have to look at the bigger picture. And sometimes if you're going to have more meetings because there's more people involved, you might have your initial meeting and think, oh, that's just included in the price. But when you're driving back and forth and during the lifespan of a project, you've had to go to 10 or 15 meetings, you have to factor the time in, the cost. You should be working, so it's a case of you're taking that time out, so therefore you have to be reimbursed for that. So there's a lot more things that go into it. A project isn't just literally the license for the builder, license for the theme, your hosting, your domain registration. It's going to take me 10 hours, so I'll bill for 50, or I'll quote for 15 because it always goes over. You have to look at, right, what is going to be included in all of this, and what kind of support, what kind of conversations are we going to have, meetings are we going to have. So I think this is something that you have to take into consideration. And a lot of the time, if you're working with a bigger company with a bigger budget, they're probably going to be expecting a different level of service to potentially, like you say, your florist that maybe is a one-person band doing a smaller job, not having as many expectations. There's lots of things to take into consideration, I think. Okay, so the next thing I want to kind of talk about, and just keeping an eye on the time, is researching customer demand. This kind of goes hand in hand with what we talked about earlier, which is, you have to do your market research. You have to look at what kind of businesses are out there, what kinds of, what kind of market can you tap into. But I think this is probably a little bit more specific, where if you can identify, like, for example, let's go back to the accommodation and tourism-based business. If we took a look at 50 sites and only 3 of those had online booking, you could say, well, there's a market there to tap into. Even if people don't want their websites rebuilt, this is some way of getting in, creating an open door, creating a relationship with the buyer, with the person that actually pays the bills, that when they want to redesign their website or they're not happy with something and you've given them a good service, you can potentially then get a foot in the door and maybe have that redesign work, maybe have something to do with that. So your researching customer demand goes beyond just finding out, are there customers out there? It's a case of, what are those customers, those potential customers, what are they missing? What are their pain points? What specific needs do they have that are not being serviced by the businesses that are in the area, if there are already businesses in the area? So again, I mean, do you kind of go back and do this on a semi-regular basis, or are you kind of that far down the line now and you've established yourself, not only because of what you've done in Leicester, but also the fact that you create content, you're being contacted by people via the whole YouTube kind of content creator side of things.
Yeah.
But if you are in that position, previously where you weren't in that enviable position, did you kind of look to see, right, are there additional services that are not being met in the area that my catchment area, that I can actually look to bring to the table and maybe take clients off other businesses, offer additional services, complementary services, those kinds of things? Did you kind of do that? I think for me now, if I was going to go back and do it, this would be one of the key things that I would do, is look to see where those openings actually are.
Yeah, I think it was, we tried that, And it was a little bit difficult sometimes to understand maybe what are other businesses doing. You could see what was being offered, but sometimes it was difficult to know what are the numbers, what's the uptake. Um, and often it was a case of like, so one of the services that a lot of businesses tend to still go for was like, customized stationery and customized products and stuff like that, which isn't an area we were going to look into. And obviously, in the last 6, 7 years, social media marketing was a big thing, and we did consider it. And we did offer it for a while, and then it started to become clear that it was like, unless you have a really big team to manage notifications, replies, and all of that kind of thing, was it really worth it? And also, it started to become clear that there were too many other people, not in the UK and around the world, that offer it for a really low value. Like, they don't charge a lot for it. And then it was like, well, do you want to spend 10 hours a day doing notifications, bespoke products? And I know now you've got AI. There's loads of stuff out now where you can use AI to generate your social media posts and all of that, like the actual content. But 6 or 7 years ago, it started to feel a bit like, it felt like you'd have to employ a lot of virtual assistants and stuff like that. So we didn't go down that road. It is always good, though, to find out. I mean, normally the way I approach it is when I'm talking to a client, I kind of ask them very early on is, what are the problems you're having? What do you want to solve? What do you think you need to do? Are you doing any social media? So what I do is, rather than offering them a social media marketing campaign solution, I guide them. I spend 5 minutes saying, hey, why don't you use Publer? Why don't you do this? Every day, schedule out 10 posts or whatever, try and connect with people and do that. And even though we're not offering the service, by me telling them, they actually quite like that. And again, it just comes out to me giving them an extra bit of advice. But if we had a bigger team, and I knew that, I think what I'm trying to get to is, there's so many of these services out there, people don't pay a lot for that service anymore, social media marketing. No. But that was the gap I think we noticed then, and we notice it a lot now as well. I mean, how many times you built a website for someone and you ask, and they go, oh yeah, put my Facebook and my LinkedIn link on, and you go, great. And then you go in and look at it and you go, but you haven't put a post out for like 6 months. Oh, yeah. People are going to go and see that. So what are you trying to say to them? Like, oh yeah, here's my website, here's my link, but oh yeah, I haven't posted for 6 months. Why would they care?
Exactly. We talked about this in the past, I think, where, there's this common misconception of like, oh, you should have that. That's something you should have in your business. And if you don't actually get involved in it, you don't actually create any content, put, sort of anything that's of interest on there, what's the point in including that in your website? It just seems completely bonkers to do it. But Pam asks the question, and I kind of answered this in the comments, but do you ask, I think it's one of those things, lot of people are kind of scared to ask what the budget is. And I think my answer has always kind of been, I think when you're new in business, yes, it is one of those things that it can be kind of scary and overwhelming to ask that. But as you build confidence and you build up, sort of like skills and things like that, you'll very quickly come to realize that it makes your life so much easier if you do ask what the budget is, because it saves you can weed out the time wasters. If you've got someone that says, oh, our budget is £500, well, you can pretty safely double that, but they're just trying to get a sort of a cheaper price. But without it, you end up potentially just spending a lot of time creating proposals and things like that don't make you any money. They take you away from things that actually are paying jobs. So I think you can kind of get to the point of deciding which ones you kind of want to work with, because their budget is actually in keeping with what you can do. And the kind of thing that goes hand in hand with that is, I've got people that have come to me and said, oh, this is what you want. You put the proposal together and they haven't given you a budget. And this is one of the things that is a reason why I would also recommend you do ask for the budget, is then you kind of have to get to that conversation and go, oh, that's coming in at £2,000. We can't afford that. So then you've got two choices. You either say, sorry, that's the price and there's nothing we can do about it. Or you can say, the only way I can bring the price down is if we strip features out. Now, I found in the past, a good percentage of people that you do that with, they suddenly find that extra little bit of budget to get the full experience. So it is worth sometimes doing that. But I would say to qualify your potential clients by asking them their budget before you invest time in research, proposals, and all those kinds of things that go with it. So, I mean, Imran, have you kind of ever been in a situation where you haven't asked the budget and it's kind of bitten you?
Yes. And in the past, I didn't used to ask because you were always scared that sometimes you just want the work and you'll take what they give. But I want to tell you something, a lesson I've learned over the years and I've applied for a long, long time now is even when I haven't had a job for a week or two and someone contacts whatever, I treat it like I don't care if I win it or not. And you're going to probably sit there going, what? I literally treat it like I don't care. So because I have my price, you might not like it, but if we work together, fantastic. But if we don't, I don't care. So I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, I lost this job. No, because I treat it like if I get it, great. If I don't get it, not. And I'm going to tell you, Monday night, someone based on me doing LinkedIn posts, and if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see the posts I do. They saw my post. They've never come across me before. They liked what they saw. They contacted me Monday night. Message on LinkedIn. I want to create a website. I go, yeah, okay, great. What are you trying to do? Okay, they work in a stocks finance industry kind of thing, property acquisition. And I then said to them on my second reply, but by the way, this is all on LinkedIn, so no complicated emails, just, paragraph reply. What's your budget? Straight away, I get in there, what's your budget? And I do that even on phone calls or video calls. And they said to me their budget was £1,000. That's what I would charge for a basic one-page website, okay? And the service you're going to get from me. So I said to him, how many pages you're thinking? He's thinking of 4 pages. Okay. And I told him, the cost will be £2,000. So he's told me his budget, and I've literally doubled it. But I told him what he gets for it. We then had a phone call yesterday. He's going to book us in now to get his job done. So he's told me his budget. I've doubled it, but I've told him what he's going to get for it. I've explained to him, you're going to get X, Y, Z. In fact, if you're willing to triple it, you get the SEO as well, or not. But I'm letting you know that's a desirable. And now he's going to go and speak to someone, but he did sound very keen that he might even get us to do that. So potentially we've gone from £1,000 to £3,000, but he made clear his budget. And I bet a lot of you, if he had said to you 1,000, you would have done it for 1,000 or less to win his business. Whereas I treat it like, hey, if he goes for it, great. If he doesn't go for it, I move on. I'm not placing my mortgage on winning that business. I'm not saying that I'm going to suffer if we don't work together. I treat everything like nothing is guaranteed, okay? And if you're trying to scale up and you're still servicing low-priced market customers, until you take that leap of faith to start charging more, you just won't do it. So you've got to take a leap of faith, okay? And once you start winning, you don't become overconfident, but I'm telling you now, right, okay, the 3 jobs that we've agreed this week, they are nearly 10 times the cost of what we were charging for the exact same websites about 4 or 5 years ago. And that says a lot. That really says a lot. Why were we doing it for so cheap then? Because that's what we thought was good. But now we've changed our mindset. So the moment you take a leap of faith, and when you start winning the big clients, remember, okay, if you win a big client, that big client will know people. And when they give you word of mouth referrals, you're in the right place to, again, attract higher paying clients. Remember that. You build a website for $20, their friend will also want it for $20. You build a website for someone that's £3,000, and their friend comes along. You've got something to work off.
It is a difficult one. It is a big part of it is confidence. And I think also you kind of we talk about these different numbers like the £3,000, the £5,000, the £10,000 and stuff like that. we're talking about our markets. We're talking about in our country. We totally understand that if you're in a different market, you're in a different country, those figures are totally, could be pie in the sky. They could be way too cheap. Totally understand that. You'd have to adjust it for where you are in the world to make it realistic. But I think Imran does have a very good point. If you are too cheap, then you will only pick up the crap clients, because they're the ones that generally tend to expect so much more, and you will be a very, very busy fool. And I just think it's worth sometimes looking at. You can test it. You can test that market. One thing I would always recommend, if you want to put your price up and you're concerned by it, look at how you can value add. In other words, what can you include that won't take you much additional time, or maybe even something that won't take you any extra time. You would have done it anyway, but now you kind of include that in it, and then when you give that proposal over from a potential client that's giving you an indication of their budget, you can kind of say, well, look, these are all the things that you're getting for it. These are all the things that are included in it, whether it's accessibility, whether it's basic SEO, optimizing images, or all those different kinds of things. There's a lot of things that you can kind of do to value add, that if you feel like you need to justify your pricing, justify that increase in cost for a project, they're ways of doing it. And then when you get comfortable, then you can adjust what you include, and you can maybe include this as optional extras, or however you want to do it. The whole process is, none of this is set in stone. All of this is looking and testing and refining and modifying, because ultimately you don't want to be a busy fool. You want to be smart. You want to work smarter, not harder, and you ultimately want to be paid a good amount of money for the things that you're actually providing that particular customer. And a good example of this is, stop looking at your website that you provide a customer as the product. Forget about the product itself. Forget about the website. And there's a book out there which is by a British author. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but it's called Sell Futures, Not Features. So if you've got a website, let's just say, for example, now someone comes along to Imran and they say, look, I've got this kind of business. We need to have a listing kind of website because we want to do X, Y, and Z. Now, Imran could put a proposal together, and the opening part of that could be a case of, we will include this, 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 and this, and this. And that's great, because us as designers, we look at, there's the problem, there's the thing that I can give you to create the solution. But if you flip that and you say, right, let's forget about the technology behind it. This is the problem. So you start off your proposal with the problem, and then your solution underneath doesn't even talk about technical. It just explains how you will go about improving that business, that person's life, whatever it is. You're selling the future that they will have by having a website built that is all around the things that you can kind of include in it. That has a bigger potential of actually winning a project than just literally listing out a pile of technical things. I'm going to use this plugin, I'm going to use this feature, we're going to use this theme. Let me tell you, 95% of people that come to you couldn't give a toss about what tools you will use. They have a problem. They want to pay you to provide a solution and change their life in some way. Get rid of the problem. Yeah. Turn over more money. And Michael Killian, that's it. Cheers, Rich. Michael Killian. That's something that I would say. Start to flip your mindset from the features that you're going to sell them and tell them how you can change their future by giving them that kind of end result kind of thing. If that makes sense. Does that make sense, Imran? Do you kind of get where I'm coming from with it?
No. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's the thing, you see. So like I just said, this client, I've doubled up. We're literally, so he could have said, oh, forget it. There's no need to go any further with this, LinkedIn messaging, but they carried on. They wanted a bit more because in the second paragraph, I've told him what he's getting from it and how it's going to help him going forwards. And he said to me yesterday's phone call, he was speaking to 3 other people, okay, and none of them said anything like what I did. And he was just surprised. He now was more knowledgeable about what he needs and what he's going to get out of it, whereas the others were like, yeah, we can build it for you. They literally took no interest. I'm saying to him, how are you going to attract clients? How are you going to get people to take a damn or have any interest in you? What makes you special? What makes you different? Who are you? And they were like, no one's ever really asked them that. People just want to know, when do you want it built by? But if you start to tell them about the features you're going to add, because I started talking to him about appointment booking and stuff like that. And I go, don't worry, that will be included as well. We've got some solutions we can use for you. He wasn't even thinking of that. And then suddenly it's literally, I was saying it on the live call today. I could hear, it was on the phone. No, when we talked on Tuesday, you could hear the pennies dropping in his brain. It was almost like, it's like, And that's what you got to do. And you're going to know it. You're going to know what special things you can do, which are not going to take any more time, you could say to them, hey, look, make sure you set up a mailing list, a subscription. How long is that going to take you to do the API and the integration for that? Like what, 5 minutes? Tell them, they might not have said that, but say to them, go and set up your MailChimp or your MailerLite account. We'll get us the API, we'll integrate it, build up your mailing list. You can send out newsletters. So by you educating them a little bit, they see value in you. And you are no longer just a web designer. You become, you are still a web designer at the end of the day, but you start to become like someone they can trust. And that's the big thing to conversion with proposals. You got to show them that you're not just there for their money. You're there to work with them as a partnership. And say that to them. Say to them, I want to build up a partnership with you. I want to be working with you in 10 years' time. Not because they've not paid you and you're trying to get paid in 10 years' time, but you want to be with them on the journey.
To be honest, it's one of those things that I do still have clients I've been working with for longer than 10 years. So it does work. When you build a relationship and a rapport and you've got clients that they value your experience and expertise, and they know that you're not there just to make the quick buck. You're there to help them become more successful. There's an awful lot of value involved in that side of things, and you can't do that if you're just churning out cookie cutter websites on 3 or 4 or 5 of them every single week. It just doesn't happen that way. But if that's what you want to do, like I say, no one is undermining that. If that's your business model, that is perfectly fine. If that's where you want to go, it's just that's a much harder business model to make successful, because you need to have such a huge amount of customers coming through to make it financially viable. Where the way that we are talking about how we would look at setting up business and how we've done things is more about less is more. You have less clients that make you more money. And that is ultimately, I think, what most of us would want. Now, Sam has asked a couple of questions. This is kind of going back to his previous point where he's put a form together on his website, and on there it asks for budget ranges. Now, I've done exactly the same thing in the past. I don't think there's anything wrong with it in the slightest. What I would suggest is making those ranges relatively sort of not too far apart. Like, you don't want to go from like £1 to £10,000 dollars. But he's kind of, that water is repeating. So this is the first part of it. So in addition, I decided to test asking them to pick one of these. 1, I'm very picky and I'm willing to pay a premium for the VIP treatment. Or 2, I'm not picky, but on a shoestring budget, so give me a deal. And 3, I'm seeking quality work at a fair price. So instead of giving a financial kind of indication, it's more a case of how do you feel about the project that you want me to quote you on. Do I think there's anything wrong with that? I think if that's kind of in keeping with the tone of voice that you've got on your website. If you have a kind of a light-hearted tone of voice throughout the website, and this kind of keeps in that same vibe and that same sort of feeling, then I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And as we've said all along, there's no right or wrong. There's just test it, refine it. If it works, stick with it. If it doesn't, try something different until you get to the point where you find the thing that gives you the best return on whatever you're doing. Then stick with that one. So test it, refine it, measure it, and go with that. So if that works, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But like I say, it has to kind of be in keeping with the rest of your tone of voice. If your entire website is really kind of very professional and very sort of straight-laced and very, you're talking to businesses and you have that sort of like that business to business thing, and then your form that has a quote is kind of light-hearted, there would be a bit of a kind of conflict there. But if it fits in, I think it works well. It would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark. But mindful, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you rely on a handful of big clients, you can lose high percentage of your residual easily. Of course you can. You know, there's positives and negatives to everything that you do. But I think if you are building up a good reputation, you will get people, you will get new clients coming on board, and then you kind of have to offset that risk with it. You know, there's no perfect business model. I mean, you could take lower paying clients that make you a residual income. And again, this is kind of goes back to, if all you did is build a website for a customer and then that is the end of the relationship, that becomes a problem with the eggs in one basket, because you've got no separate revenue streams. That when you have lean moments where there's not a client or new clients coming on board, you have no money coming in. And that's not a position any of us want to be in, which is why I've kind of always said the same thing. You need to have multiple revenue streams, whether that's hosting, domain registrations, maintenance contracts, new websites, you know, whatever it is. All those things have to complement, so you don't have feast or famine at any given point. You know, you can work on your own business knowing that you've still got revenue coming in when you don't have clients, and then work on their websites when you do. I mean, would I be right in saying, Imran, that this is how you set things up? You've got multiple revenue streams in your business. That means that you don't have that feast or famine kind of business kind of underlying everything you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we mix it up with things like that. So, and also, I always say that sometimes it's good to have a bit of famine in terms of no work. Because, like, I'm making sure that I'm not working on any projects next week or anything like that. Because sometimes you need time to reflect, to research, to learn, to record goddamn YouTube videos because you haven't done them for 5 days and stuff like that. But sometimes you need a bit of time back for yourself. So always treat stages of famine a little bit like times for you to explore other avenues. And, you know, we're not just relying on web design work. We have other things as well. Originally, when we started our business, we were working with analytics and offering consultancy analytics to companies. So we have, you know, bits of pockets of stuff like that as well. But so don't just rely on websites. You know, look at what you can do, because I know some of you can do graphics. You know, you can design logos. Some of you are very good at SEO, so branch out. You know, don't just do web design, or reach out to other people and organizations as well. Graphics, logo, anything like that. So anything you can do to offer different services, do that. And don't believe any quick get rich schemes you see out there. You know, do this, do that, and you're going to make loads of money. They don't always work, okay? But a lot of it is about anything you can do to build up your skill set and your reputation, your profile, get yourself out there. People do come and find you. I mean, we don't cold email. I don't do sponsored adverts. A lot of word of mouth referrals come in. A lot of people find us on the back of social media or a video we've done or something like that. So, but that takes effort. You know, we have to put time in to record those videos and do social media. You know, we haven't got anyone doing it for us, and that's on top of everything else. So if you're sat there going, oh, well, you know, I'm just going to sit there with my feet up and, you know, I'm just going to watch TV or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, don't start going, oh, I need clients. Get off your ass and start looking at your social media. Because I'm telling you, not all of you, but some of you, when you do put out social media, you're just saying, hey, come and get a website built. Doesn't work. Show us you're human. Show me what you're wearing or not wearing.
I think that's going down a whole different route now. I think we'll just we'll stop that line of conversation. Right, I'm going to take one more question, and then we're going to kind of call it a day on that kind of decidedly dodgy note. So, Sam, do you have any advice on becoming a WordPress VIP partner? Is it worth the trouble? I mean, Imran, do you have any experience of the whole VIP partnership with WordPress?
No, I haven't. And to be honest, if I'm really honest, I'm always a little bit. I have in my career partnered up with different people or organizations, or I've done some long-term collaboration, not just in web design, from a technical aspect, from an analytical, even creative writing. And you know what? I always hate it, because my time is suddenly taken up by other time as well. And sometimes I feel indebted, or I've got to almost fit I've got to do things that work with other people. Like, I'm not free. Now, a lot of you know, okay, that, and I'm going to stop here at this point, but a lot of you know that I promote Elemental a lot. But at the same time, I'm very vocal about Elemental. And sometimes I feel like I can't say what I really want to say because Elemental won't like it. I'm not a partner with them. But that is why, anything, I'm just not keen on partnering up because I would feel like I can't be me. I'm restricted, and I'm pretty sure you can tell right now with me saying share your clothes or not clothes, what you're saying or whatever. I don't care. I do care. If anyone dares send me any photos without clothes, you are in trouble. You are banned from my list.
I don't like where this conversation is going.
I don't know at all. We got to stop this.
Yeah. I'll give my kind of take on this. I'm assuming the VIP partner say that I've never looked into this. I'm assuming this kind of gives you some kind of credibility if you're building websites around WordPress and so on. If that is the case, if I'm correct on that, I would question whether it would give the typical user, or the typical potential client for you, any kind of extra kudos, because I would wonder if they would even care or know about WordPress. Do you know what I mean? It's like most clients, they might know the terminology and they can be a little bit dangerous with, oh, I've heard about WordPress and I should have a blog and I should have this, that, and the other. But the reality is they don't understand it that well. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be coming to you to build a website. So personally, I would probably say I don't think it would be worth the hassle. I would just spend the time and effort and your resources finding new clients, honing your skills, learning new technologies, creating more things that you can actually package together to give a better result to potential clients and therefore up your charges because you're giving them so much more for their budget anyway. That's kind of where I would go with it. I don't think I would invest the time and effort into it. But I can totally appreciate where Imran's coming from with the whole sort of when you partner up with certain brands, it can definitely stifle your ability to be open and honest about what you think and what you feel, because they can have problems with that kind of thing. But yeah, so I'm going to wrap things up here. If you've enjoyed tonight's conversation and you've got value from it, please do hit that thumbs up button, because it does tell YouTube that you enjoyed the content and you're getting value from it. And it makes us feel good that we've got lots of little thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, well, you can hit the thumbs down twice, because that works pretty well too. As always, Imran, if people want to find out a little bit more about you, how can they go about doing that? If you'd like to let them know, that'd be cool.
Easiest method is to go to YouTube, do a search for Web Squadron. You'll find our YouTube channel and you'll find links in there for email, our Facebook group, and obviously the channel. Reach out to us if you need any help or support. And I'm sure we can help you out. And don't forget, we have got loads and loads of videos to help you out as well.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you again for joining me tonight. And if anybody wants to find out a little bit more about WPTuts, you can just simply head over to YouTube, do a search for WPTuts inside there, or you can hop over to Facebook and join the Facebook group, or join us on Twitter, where we keep you up to date with all the information, new tutorials, and any kind of content and little rants and things like that. So thank you everybody for joining in tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and talking to Imran. Hope you found value in what we've talked about tonight, and we'll be back again same time next week, where we'll continue the conversation about if we were going to set up in business, and we'll take a look at the next stages, and hopefully you have some questions there as well. So thanks very much everybody. Take care, look after yourself, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, bye.